Good afternoon, everyone. And this afternoon, we're going to be speaking with Joel Libava, who I've known Joel a long time over the internet and the web, and I'm probably one of Joel's biggest fans. Many people know him as the Franchise King. And today, what I'm excited about, and this webinar is for emerging brands, it's about winning as a franchisor. Joel speaks with hundreds of franchisees. Joel provides some of the most honest and practical advice to franchisees out there, really guides and cares for them. And the value for franchise brands and emerging franchise brands today is that Joel's going to share his insights and, as a franchisor, help us reverse engineer the franchise process, the journey that the franchisees go through, and how young, innovative brands as franchisors can break the mold and do something very different. And so I know what Joel has to share with us today is going to be, at least in my opinion, groundbreaking, because as a franchisor, you need to break the status quo. So Joel, thank you so much for doing this today.
Sure, thanks for having me, Charles. I really appreciate it. Hopefully we can help some young brands get rock and rolling.
Well, and you know what? I know you will. And I know this webinar, as I go through the materials, absolutely will get that done. If you're in the franchising world, you probably know Joel or read something that Joel wrote. Joel works with franchisees, has an entire process to help franchisees. And what people don't know, and the insights we're going to share today, it's very rare, but Joel does work with some franchise brands. So, and Joel, the best place is thefranchiseking.com, correct?
Yes, everything is there.
Again, my focus when I spoke with Joel earlier today is reverse engineering the process. So if you're an emerging franchise brand, you're out there, you're deciding either how to accelerate your franchise sales process, how to grow your franchise system, what you should have on your franchise website. And what we're going to talk about today is Joel's going to explain to you as a franchisor the journey franchisees go through and how to differentiate your brand. And there's no better way to do that than to start with Joel's expertise, which is the journey that franchisees go through. And what does that process look like?
You know, Charles and everyone who's listening today, there are so many choices in the market right now. And I'm not talking just franchise opportunities. When you go look for a product, because of the internet, which really was the Wild West many years ago, the choices are overwhelming. Whether you're looking for a car, a home, a product that can now be found on Amazon but never used to be, people are overwhelmed. Now, what I want you to do is put yourself in their head and imagine how overwhelmed they're feeling when it comes to, I want to be my own boss, and I think maybe a franchise is the way to go. So they hit a couple franchise websites, they fill out a couple forms. Some of the forms lead to franchise salespeople calling back, and then through the magic of marketing, brokers are calling them, who they didn't even kind of know they contacted. So they're getting bombarded just by starting to look at one or two brands. Combine that with the trust factor. Who can they trust? I mean, I used to be in the car business many years ago. And about a month and a half ago, my lease was coming up and I started looking for a car. Now, I used to be in the business. I was overwhelmed because the internet has changed the car buying business so much. So I didn't know who to trust. I wasn't sure how to go through the process. I felt like an amateur. Imagine someone looking at a franchise who has never done it before, but is in so much career pain that they're willing to do almost anything to change their life. So the trust factor is huge. And consumers these days just don't trust a lot of brands. So what you have to think of when you're doing your follow-up after they fill out a lead form, you have to think of how can you present your brand transparently, and how can you show that you are a trusting person on the other end of the phone and the other end of the email. Combine that with over 3,000 different franchise opportunities. There's probably 3,200, 3,300 of them now, with more and more starting every month. When I was a broker years ago, I remember talking to people when I used to buy leads, and they would say, well, wait a second, I was only interested in looking at a Jimmy John's. Why are you calling? So imagine that times 10 and all the phone calls people are getting, all the emails people are getting right when they start searching for a franchise. So I want you to make sure that you come across as transparent, trusting, and that you have something different right away if you want to hold their attention. I just think that that's really, really important.
You know, Joel, it's interesting to me because emerging and new franchisors, the point you make is, I think they fail to realize that they're not necessarily competing with other franchisors in their industry, but they're competing at investment levels with brands in many different industries.
And they're competing for attention.
Right.
Think about it.
And what?
Go ahead.
And we'll talk about it, Joel, because these brands are spending so much money, whether it's PR, whether it's pay-per-click, and you're correct. I think it's important to understand that they are competing for attention. And when they do get the attention or when they do get a click, it's a shame because many times they're wasting the opportunity. They're not conveying that trust factor and that journey. And so I think it's important, your points of reverse engineering the sales process too, which is, as an emerging franchisor, they should work through the journey that their prospects are going through. So your tips here in terms of really focusing on the benefits of being a franchisee.
People don't want to become franchise owners just to make money. I mean, they want to change their lives. They don't want to work for corporate America anymore. Maybe they've been downsized 3 or 4 times. They're sick of moving their family around the country. They're in some real career pain. They're looking for a solution to that. Whether or not it's a franchise this time around or a new job, you have to really, really stand out, and you have to make it feel as safe as possible at the beginning. Make sure that there are no commitments that they are making monetarily. You just have to really, really get them into trust mode early on. And think about your prospect. If it's a male who's 45, 48 years old, who's sitting at either his home office or his office, he's looking at emails, he's looking at a screen, his smartphone is pinging, and then he clicks a link and finds you. So now he's focused on you until that next ping or that next phone call from someone at headquarters. I mean, people are it's a totally ADD world now. And you have to be able to stop someone in their tracks. And once you do, to keep them focused on you for more than about 5 seconds. It's really, really hard. So make sure everything from your logo to the colors on your logo, everything has to really have a feeling of trust. And your follow-up has to be really fast. Now, not fast like, hi, I'm in the sales department at the franchise. I mean, but it has to be fast and professional. Just remember that people lose their attention really, really fast in today's world. And you have to find a way to stand out. That's the bottom line. And transparency is really important too.
Again, what I see brands missing, and when I look at the franchise sales website and what they're presenting, it's all about them. They're talking about themselves. And I think what you've just said, Joel, I mean, if you are an emerging brand, you're listening to this webinar, really spend some time to dissect this. When Joel says you need to offer a solution to their real pain, that's very significant because I challenge 99% or 9 out of 10 websites that I see don't offer any solution to their prospects' pain. They don't even understand what that pain point is. And they're offering generic information about how great they are or that the industry is a $50 billion industry and somehow that relates to the prospect.
Yeah, who cares? Who cares? Yeah. We're a residential cleaning franchise, and we are part of a $13 billion industry that keeps growing every year. And that's what I was kind of taught early on when it comes to marketing. Put the word "and" after the sentences that you are trying to convey.
That's great advice, yeah.
And what does that mean for me? And how's that going to help me? Am I going to be making 1/10 of that amount of money? I mean, what's so talk to the person where they're coming from, where they're at. It's a changing your life type of marketing message that needs to be done but not in a hokey way.
That's awesome. I mean, right now, if you're a brand and you go apply that to your website right now and ask that end question, I think you're going to be sitting there for hours and really diving. The other thing I want to throw out, I'm like, you mentioned about engaging them quickly and personally, and I think there's no better example. If for those listening, if you go to Joel's site, thefranchiseking.com, and you read some of Joel's blog posts, I mean, they're very quick to the point. They're very engaging. I mean, your writing style is amazing. I look to it to learn for myself. But it's, I mean, it's really good writing style, but that's a big takeaway. What's the solution to their pain point and how are you making them feel safe? I think that's great. And then Joel, when you're working with brands, you're talking with them, what do you look for in a quality franchisor that you're communicating to franchisees when you see quality?
The first part of when I look at a franchisor, I want to see where their focus is. And I was taught very early from a gentleman by the name of Don Hayes, who is the CEO of Maid Brigade. Right on his, used to be a brochure. Remember those look like? I don't even have an example of one. But when people used to send brochures in the mail or leave them for people at an expo, right in front, our focus is on franchisee profitability. Wow. Franchisors, you need to realize that if your franchisees are profitable, 50% of your problems are instantly gone. Yeah. Instantly. Because if they're profitable, that means they're probably reasonably happy, and validation calls are no brainer. Whenever someone is interested in buying a franchise and they're calling that franchisee or your franchisees, hey, I'm making money, I'm pretty happy. Details, sure, here they are. I mean, the sales force is almost not needed at that point. All right. So even if you don't put it on your online brochure on your website, make sure that would-be franchise owners know that you want them to make money, and that is what you want to focus on. And if you're not focusing on that right now, you're not doing what you need to do as a franchisor, because it's a win-win. The more money your franchisees make, the more money you make. Do you want a bunch of happy franchisees making money, or do you want franchisees that are, we're doing okay, and the complaints start? And why aren't you doing this better, Mr. Franchisor or Mrs. Franchisor? So focus on their profitability. If you do that, you're going to be more profitable. When it comes to quality, I like to see a lot of transparency. I'd like to see franchisors that put it on the line, that maybe in some of their literature admit mistakes they have made in the past. That to me is quality. That to me is like, wow, they have the courage to say, we used to look at franchisees that had this background, they didn't work out. That's why we're looking at franchisees that have this background now, maybe similar to yours. One thing that I have found is that sometimes, not a lot, but sometimes franchisors are really good at selling franchises, but it seems that once they get that franchise fee check and once training is done, if a franchisee has a problem, the franchisor is a little difficult to find. It can't be like that. It has to be about more than just selling franchises at the beginning. And I also like to look for CEOs that have a long-term vision. So when a franchisee visits for a discovery day, the CEO will answer the question, so what is your long-term vision? Do you have any ideas for products or services in the future? Don't make it a secret. Well, that's kind of, no, tell them, by the way, in 3 years, we're thinking about, maybe launching this, maybe doing this as an add-on. You don't have to keep a secret. Tell them. Am I right, Charles?
Yeah, no, it's interesting, Joel, because when you hear things, they just make sense. And then it's like some of these points someone would say is obvious, but they're not, right? And you say 50% of the problems, even, right? And even on legally, if your franchisees are profitable, you're not going to have lawsuits. And you're right, the validation and the sales machine just starts growing.
It's automatic. It's an automatic. And the other thing I want to add is that the best franchisors in the world have the courage to say no to a $35,000 franchise fee check. And new franchisors especially, I know you need cash flow. I know you want that $35,000. But if your gut is telling you that this person who wants to be a franchisee might not be right, don't award the franchise. Because a year from now, you're going to be paying for it. It's going to cost you more.
It is.
In headspace and maybe even financially. Choose the best of the best first. It's frustrating. It's hard to turn down a franchise fee check, but it's going to pay off if you are into more than just getting franchise fee checks.
Now, it's a big point, right? Because you could have the same franchise at the same location. Franchisee A kills it, has the right capital. Franchisee B has the same sales but hates the opportunity.
Right.
You know, it's all about that matching and that process too. And it's so hard because emerging brands, they have that capital drain. Yeah. You have all these vendors pulling in different directions. But I promise, right, if you take that step back and focus on some of these things, which is, okay, you paid an ad agency and your materials sound like everything else, pull back and go through that journey, figure out that solution to that pain point. And even it sounds counterintuitive, do you hire someone to come in and help you qualify and evaluate franchisee candidates to accept? Right now you're paying someone else only to tell you to not take them on. But that gets the long term. I mean, these are all important points. And it's interesting how as franchisees are going through the validation process, you look for franchisors that are willing to admit their mistakes and their corrective measures.
Even if they're willing to admit, hey, you know, we have 3 franchisees, we'll admit it, we're new, but we feel so strongly about what we offer the consumer and what we offer people that want to become franchisees that we know it's going to work out. It'll be fine. So you got to come across like that.
Right, which means you have to believe it. And then I think, Joel, too, the only way you could come across like that is to do the genuine work that you're suggesting, which is, what is the franchisee looking for? Why are you the best opportunity for them? And why do you genuinely believe that if they commit their future and their family, they're going to win with your brand? And too many brands go through this cookie cutter process that I think interferes with all of this.
It does. I understand volume is really important. But, you know, as an emerging franchisor, you don't want to sell 25 franchises in the first year. You do, but you don't. You sell a couple, you sell 3 or 4. It's not going to get you where you want to go financially, but it's going to really teach you a lot. And the next year, if you can sell 10, maybe 14 or 15, that would be really good. The franchisors that worry me are the ones that sell 15 or 20 in the first year and sell 80 the second year.
Right.
That to me is scary. And it is a problem waiting to happen, because if you're new at franchising, as a new franchisor, unless you have a really good team around you to help you hire as needed, you're going to have a heck of a time finding locations, supporting your franchisees, and you're going to have a headache in a couple of years of lawsuits, and it's going to be crazy. So part of making sure that you're doing it the right way is to pick the right franchisees. Pick the right franchisees at the beginning.
Well, it's interesting. Going to your point, you sell 3, year 1, 10, year 2. You have 13 franchisees. Year 3 comes. If you followed your advice, and these are quality franchisees, your point is they're going to validate and you're going to scale.
Yeah, you're going to scale. It'll just happen.
Joel, I'm curious, what's your take? And I know we didn't discuss this, but I'm going to throw this at you. I'm curious, for emerging brands, when you see an opportunity, what's your thought process when you see multi-unit development deals or area representatives, you know, that are controlling territories? Do you have an opinion on that, or a feeling one way or the other?
Yes, I don't. The multi-unit I'm fine with.
Okay.
For emerging brand. Area development stuff, I think it gets complicated. All you have to do is look up Subway area development reps, and you will see some of the stuff that has happened. because the area reps are also franchisees for the most part, and it gets a little shady, to say the least. Not that it's going to happen for you as an emerging franchisor, but single units are fine. It's a nice warm up for both of you. Multi-units are great.
Okay.
I'm fine with that as long as they're financially qualified and you are ready to do that. If you actually have a real estate person in place that can help do that, that's how to do it.
All right, that because it always comes up. And then, Joel, so for sometimes franchisors, and I got to say, your advice that you're about to give, very counterintuitive. I think it makes sense, although I haven't thought of it the way you have. For those emerging brands, as they're preparing their FDD or refining it and whatnot, what do you look for when you're working with prospects in terms of the FDD itself?
I want prospects to, and they're actually my clients because they pay me. So right. I want my clients to go through the FDD once, mark it, highlight it, put it away. But Joel, item 19 says, that's fine. But you need to talk to franchisees to find out what the day in the life is and what the money is really like. And this is going to get me going a little bit about the item 19. I dislike immensely when franchisors put an item 19 claim on their website, front and center, loud. Because you have to understand human behavior. And when someone sees something and they like it, they almost immediately tell themselves that I can do it too. So for example, on our item 19, it says that for 3 years, the average unit brings in $675,000 in total sales. Wow, that's awesome. And if I'm a multi-unit owner, that is fantastic. That person looking at the website, that would-be franchisee, is not saying, well, let's see, on the low end, it's 275. On the high end, it's 787,000. You don't think about that. They think it's 675 times 3. And, I should be able to make 150 grand out of that. No problem. Done. And all of a sudden, you have a very hot prospect who is looking at the opportunity in an unrealistic way. Emerging franchisors usually can't have an item 19 earnings claim because they only have one franchisee, and you don't really want to do it for that. Franchisors these days, I think sometimes use it as a crutch, and their salespeople can easily use it as a crutch. I guess a broker can too, if he or she wanted to. The item 19 is only part of the picture. It's a small part of the picture. Franchisors are making it too big. When I work with a client, I tell them, if you want to look at the item 19 and look at all the charts and the graphs, that's fine. But I don't care what it says. I care what the franchisees say. So if you're doing your validation calls and you're asking franchisee, well, I saw the item 19 and it looks like, $600,000-$700,000 in gross sales on year 3. Is that about what you're doing? Okay. That is how to use the item 19. You don't use the item 19 as, here it is in black and white, this is what I'm going to do in sales, and I'm sure I'm going to make this amount of money. So I think franchisors need to be really careful. Stop focusing on the item 19. Be a little different, okay? Encourage them to call franchisees. And if you have a good system that's validating well, because it's a good system, because you chose the best of the best, and you awarded the franchise licenses to the best of the best, then the validation calls are natural anyway. So it's my opinion. My late father, Jerry, taught me that. He said, Joel, I don't care about the FDD. I don't care about the earnings claims. It doesn't matter. The truth is going to come from the franchisees. Have people talk to the franchisees. So Charles, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I just don't like seeing franchisors use it as a crutch.
Well, so for me, as a lawyer, you get caught up in an arms race, and two things. I, from a legal perspective, I like item 19s because they help me reduce liability.
Okay.
If I have an item 19, it's less likely that someone would claim there was an illegal financial performance representation. So I like it as a form of insulation for the franchisor, because it's very easy to make claims. So that I do like, and there's other litigation reasons. Also, so I use that as security. I also feel like there's an arms race. If I don't have an item 19, I'm putting my client at a disadvantage, and I worry about that. But I think it's important for my clients and the emerging brands out there that even if they do have the item 19, to take your perspective, which is don't make it the focal point if you're focusing on all the other right things, which is that story, those pain points, and the validation with other franchisees, which, Joel, gets to my question, which I know people will be asking, which is, and this was raised during one of our last webinars with a very well capitalized brand that was actually part of a multi-brand unit. So I guess it was the president of that division who said, how do we gain traction? We're with a good, well-backed group, but we don't have franchisees for that validation. And so what do you recommend as to how they grapple with that situation?
I would tell prospects exactly that. We're with a company now that owns 8 franchise brands. We're the 8th one. We're also the youngest one, and we don't have the information. We might not have all the information you want compared to some of the brands that have been around longer. But here's what I'm going to do. Let me walk you through why this opportunity may make sense for you, and the numbers you'll be able to figure out. Just keep it simple. Don't be bobbing and weaving. There's no need to. Tell people, you know what? We are dealing with adults. I always tell people we're dealing with adults. These are not 18-year-olds trying to buy a franchise. They're adults. Assume that they have brain cells and that they have some sense of responsibility and knowledge that they are going to find out stuff on their own. And guess what? They're going to find out anyway. Tell them up front. What? It would be refreshing for a salesperson to tell me, by the way, we don't have as much information. We don't have 35 franchisees yet, but here's what we have instead. I would love to hear that instead of just dodging, and it's just ridiculous. Just be transparent. Be transparent. It won't hurt you.
So again, like all these, it'd be great to see this in the literature. It'd be great to see it in the copy of the website. It'd be great to see this up front, because the one thing, and again, I say it all the time. I'm repetitive with this, which I apologize about, which is I see these brands launch and it's the same thing. Industry is gigantic.
Always.
Provide technical support. We train you. And I'm like, what is...
Yeah. And...
right.
There's
no one answers that. They're not answering that, Joel.
Part of a $40 billion industry. And?
Well, and it's interesting that if they spend the time to do that, that's a deep dive into who they are. And that permeates so many other things. Like the benefits you get from going through that process and really understanding your brand, it'll affect your internal culture, your internal team, your salespeople.
The other franchisees?
Yeah. It sounds so simple, and yet it's not, and very few people do it.
Very few.
So, Joel, hit the other parts of the FDD. What's your thoughts in terms of upfront investment and other items you've highlighted?
This is what I want my clients to look at. How much is it going to be? Verify it when you call franchisees. Was it around $180,000 to $220,000? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it was. Actually, I live in Montana. It was a little less. And they'll start talking. Obligations of both parties. Sometimes franchisors put up sales, what do I want to call them? Sales levels that franchisees have to reach. A lot of people looking at franchises have had no idea. And if it's someone that was a sales manager, comes from a sales management background in corporate America, they're going to be so turned off by that because that's what they wanted to get away from. Right. But once again, if you are a good salesperson, you know the background of the prospect anyway, And you're probably going to jump on that early in the process after they've looked at the FDD. Kind of like, I know what part of the FDD you're not going to like, and let's talk about that right now. Just get it out of the way. The agreement length, people get freaked out, by a 30-page franchise agreement. It's scary. It's when reality hits, right? Reality hits in a couple times during the franchisee's journey. The first time is when the franchisee fills out request for more information form, because that is all of a sudden, it transfers from, I'm looking at a franchise to, I just requested information. It's bigger than you think. Make sure that the salespeople that work for you know that it's a big deal to even fill out a request for more information thing. And that's why sometimes they won't call you back when you call a prospect. They won't call you back because they realize, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. I just fill out a form. They're going to ask me about money. I'm not ready. Better now, right? So just remember that. The second part, the second big part is the phone call with the salesperson. And then the third big part is the FDD. And that really freaks people out because that is really when reality hits, because it's a lot of legalese and a lot of responsibilities that franchisees have and a lot of rules. So just be prepared for maybe some slower follow-up. Maybe you call the prospect who's had the FDD for 2 days and the prospect is still not calling back. It's probably because the FDD is freaking them out. Okay, send a little email. Hey, you freaked out by the FDD yet? Why not? Why not? Litigation. There should be 0 to very few lawsuits. And I make sure my clients ask the question when they're looking at it: is it the franchisor suing franchisees, or is it franchisees suing franchisor? Kind of important. If the franchisor is suing for back fees, for royalty payments that were not, why? If the franchisee is happy and making money, why wouldn't the franchisee be paying the fees? So maybe there's a glitch there. If franchisees are suing the franchisor, that's a red flag. If it's more than 1 or 2, that's a red flag. What is going on? In most cases, there'll be a few lawsuits, and I always tell clients, you know what? It's just part of doing business. Just let's make sure there's no pattern, and then ask the salesperson.
I have a big issue with the litigation component in the sense that I don't advocate litigation. I think it's very damaging to a franchisor. And I mean, this isn't a therapy session for me, but Joel, my biggest issue is I'm representing emerging brands and sometimes they could perceive as weakness, but I'm like, I do everything I can to avoid litigation. And then we have litigation firms come in and just ramp up the sentiment and the litigation process. And it's not a winning situation. It hurts the validation. It increases fees. For me, litigation damages emerging brands in a very critical way.
Yeah. Emerging brands are young brands. Litigation is should be the least of their worries. Try to keep the franchisees happy. Just try to keep the franchisees happy.
Well, and Joel, here's the other crazy thing that, on my end, sometimes I'd even be willing to walk away, everyone go their separate way, and, with the franchisee, then get involved in litigation. It kills me because there's so many lawyers that just advocate suing them, and it's damaging to brands. And I'm glad to at least hear it from a franchisee perspective that's on your list.
Yeah, it is. I also want to know about the executive backgrounds. Very short story. When I was with the brokerage group as a broker, we as a group took on a franchisor in the fitness industry, and the brokers were selling the crap out of this brand. 3-packs, 5-packs, and the paydays were good, right? I even sold 1 or 2. But someone pointed out one of the other brokers pointed out in the FDD something like, "Oh, did you see that the CFO was sued for fraud 2 years ago?" And what? No. And it was really weird, but ever since that broker shared that with a couple of us, like 3-4 months later, all of a sudden franchisees were like not being able to open their stores, franchisees were having problems, and the brand isn't even around anymore. I want to know the executive backgrounds. I want to know. And in my research book that I sell to clients, I show them how to do some serious internet research that no one even thinks about to find out the backgrounds of some of the executives. Now, it's kind of the Ralph Nader in me. For you really young that don't know who Ralph Nader is, he's kind of a consumer advocate. I want to know. I don't want any surprises. I don't want to know that the CEO of this new franchise that I'm looking at, a young franchise, had 5 or 6 franchises already, and made money and blew through them and then left. I want to know what's going on. You know, the internet makes it easy to hide stuff. It also makes it easy to find stuff if you're good at it. So use the internet and Google the name of the executive, of all the executives. See if something's going on. Just make sure. I would say that 99.5% of the time, it'll be fine. But if you're going to invest $200,000 in a franchise, you know, be careful. Be careful. And that's part of the trust thing. Who do you trust? Who do you trust when you're looking for a franchise? So,
which also gets to telling the story of the executives and the team behind it and how they're like the prospects and their pain points and
right.
and all the stuff that people don't talk about or not enough.
Yeah. It's about way more than sales. Way more.
So mistakes that or at least misconceptions franchisees have when they're looking at the FDD, Joel.
Yeah, that like my dad said, the FDD is not the business. The business is the business. The FDD is black and white. It's just some paper and some ink. It's not the business. Call franchisees and ask them what they're doing every day. What is your role as a franchisee? I found that the FDD doesn't matter at all if the franchisee doesn't feel like she can actually do the work needed to be the franchisee. Like some people look at food franchises and they picture themselves at lunchtime with no apron,
right,
walking around schmoozing with guests. No, it's going to be apron on because 2 out of 4 people didn't even show up for work, and you're going to be making sandwiches. But wouldn't you like to know that before you sign the franchise agreement? So find out what the day in the life of is. You're not going to find that on the FDD. So if you find that stuff out, the FDD doesn't matter. The FDD doesn't matter anyway, because it's not what you want to be doing for a living. If you want to be the schmoozer and you don't want to do any of the real physical work in a restaurant, you know, find out ahead of time.
Which again, for the franchisors is focus on that journey, right? From filling out that form through the first sales call, through the FDD, through their pain points, through your system, and the day in the life of what they, and then, right? And it, you know, it's interesting. It's daunting when you say there's like over 3,000 franchisors, and as an emerging franchisor, you're like, limited capital, how do I gain traction? And then speaking with you and hearing this, I'm also excited because there's so much room to do things differently than other brands.
There is. And as simple as it sounds, a lot of it is basic copywriting. It's writing.
Well, you know what, Joel? Here's my take. 9 out of 10 times, people are going to just sign up with an agency or a shop. You're going to be low on their priority list. They're going to sell you. Everyone wants to do the easy thing. And so they're going to sell you on pay-per-click and other stuff. You're going to get a generic page.
Right.
You know, even for our internal team, which I talk about this all the time, I'm a big fan of Traction. I'm a big fan of Donald Miller with his book Story Brand. And internally as our team, when we developed our core values and we developed our value propositions for our clients and why we're here, our why, right? Which you know, we spend days, weeks, years, it's a process. And so I think for so many brands right now, if you're an emerging brand, go through this webinar and evaluate this journey. Ask the question that you're saying about the end. So yeah, it's easy, but it's not, right? It takes effort. Yeah. What's exciting for me, Joel, is like you're giving hope. in my opinion, to emerging brands if you hit the pause button and do things differently?
Just say to yourself, I want to do things the right way. And I'm willing to be transparent with new prospects, and I'm willing to learn as I go. And I know that I'm competing with 3,000 other opportunities, but mine is special. Just get the right people around you to make sure you can sell how special it is. And we glanced over it, but a website that has really good copy and a sales page that has really good copy that can get to people's emotions instead of just features and benefits will turn a lot of people into real prospects, as opposed to, I'm looking at 74 franchises, you're one of them, tell me why I should buy yours.
Well, it's funny, Joel. It's actually not funny, but you're talking about emotions versus features and benefits, and you're saying really good copy.
Yeah.
That is easier said than done. I think people don't realize good copy appears very simple and very straightforward, and it would make sense. And yet it's the rarest thing. I think as an author, you're probably one of the best at it out there, and especially in the franchise world. I mean, your copy just moves and moves and moves.
I think I'm so average at best. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. I don't think I'm that good. I think I'm okay, and I get the point across because I look at other writers that are not in franchising and like, oh my God, I wish I could write like that. So I appreciate that.
Well, but for everyone on this webinar, everyone who's going to be listening to it, go to your website and read those articles, because it's a different world, right? As opposed to the dense copy and all the stuff. I mean, and what's interesting on your end is when you connect the dots and you understand the pain points in the journey and follow your advice about long-term and honesty, which we're talking about here, that's only when you do that can you develop genuine, real copy. You need the skill and you need that integrity, which for you, Joel, I mean, long-term, your point is all about the CEO and honesty and integrity in the process.
It starts at the top. I don't care what organization it is, from the head of the United States of America to the head of a franchise company that has 2 franchisees. It all starts at the top, period. The person at the top needs to take responsibility, needs to take action, and just need to do the next right thing, period. Because people that come from the business world that have been downsized, your would-be franchisees who have pretty good net worths, who have been very successful in business, they pick up on it. If you are not ethical and honest, they're going to pick up on it in most cases, unless you're really, really slick. Remember what we talked about at the beginning of this webinar? People are afraid. They need to trust you. They need to trust your salespeople. When someone goes to a discovery day, everyone on your team better be trustworthy. I'm talking people in your technology department, real estate operations. It is so important, but it starts at the top, CEO. And I tell my clients that when you get to meet the CEO at discovery day, sit down and look in that person's eyes. And what do you feel when you talk to this person? Is this person, most CEOs are going to be smart, but what else does he or she bring to the table? Is this person a visionary? Is this person come across like ethics are really, really important? And what we talked about earlier, do you feel in your heart that the CEO wants you to make money if you become a franchisee?
Yeah, that's, I mean, just apply that to, as you're saying that, I'm even thinking of, instead of an item 19 on a website, the CEO talking about these things and talking about the points. Yeah, and your point about our goal is to make franchisees profitable, right?
Right. We want to make you guys money. We want you guys to make money. That's simple. Because everyone wins.
Yeah, it's interesting because I see so many brands struggle, and then I see when our clients, everything hits on every cylinder, they put in hard work, and then they grow. And it's usually because they're genuine. Joel, I know you don't like talking about it, but for me, the missing link for emerging brands really gets down to how do I disrupt? How do I scale in a way? I can't play the game that the big systems are playing. So all the emerging brands, they come in, they look for the big advertising shops or PR shops that represent the big brands. which means you're just going to be doing the same thing with less capital, which for me, and that's why, aside from friendship and the respect I have for you, my real goal is to introduce you to my clients and the emerging brands we deal with, because to me, if reverse engineering the process and implementing copying. So I know you don't talk about it a lot or wanted to talk about, but I did is, do you work with franchisors?
I do. I do some work, kind of in a low key way. I would say 80%, 85% of my stuff, my clients are people that want to buy franchises, and I offer them very reasonable packages to go through everything with them. I work with a few franchisors here and there, but I'm really picky because I'm looking for ethics. I'm looking for a brand that's unique, something different. I'm looking for people that have an open mind. Not like an open mind when someone's trying to sell you multi-level marketing, I have an opportunity, but I really can't tell you what it is. You're in trouble there. But I'm looking for someone with an open mind that's like, look, I'm pretty smart, but I don't know this part of franchising, or I'm pretty smart, but I want to be around other people that can tell me what maybe I'm doing right or wrong. These days, I find that everyone that wants to get in the online marketing space with their brand wants to do that video that somehow magically goes viral, or wants to write a post that goes viral, or wants to go to wants to pay 10 grand to buy a booth at a franchise expo, and wants to be the busiest booth around. It would be nice if things happen like that, but in general they don't. If they do, it's a nice surprise. You have to do the work, but you have to be different and come across honestly and ethically. I have helped a couple smaller franchisors. I've built some landing pages for them on my site. I've referred people to them from that landing page. They've turned into franchisees. I've written some articles for them. I've done some videos here and there. I partner with Franchise Direct. If you ever want to find out what my work is like and my ethics and stuff, talk to the people at Franchise Direct. I've been working with them for like 7 years. I write an article every month. They pay me to write an article every month and to help them with a little social media stuff. I can do a lot of things, but as I said, I'm really, really picky.
Well, no, what I love is, you're even at the cutting edge in terms of the ethics of all this stuff. And what is rare, though, is when we were speaking earlier, you'd almost never hear this. One of your comments to me was, aside from being selective and cautious who you work with, that you like younger, innovative brands, right? And that's not very common. There's not many people out there that want to work with those brands.
Right, because they can't pay $10,000.
Correct. Yeah, I get it. That's why
I'm okay that they can't pay $10,000.
Yeah.
The right brand, the right opportunity, let's figure something out.
Well, but think about it. I mean, that's why I was like really excited to have you come on today, is just all the brands out there right now. How much lost opportunity, what's the value of that lost opportunity when people are bouncing off their landing pages?
They're bouncing off anyway, right? Right, they're bouncing off because it's like, okay, this was interesting, next, and their phone's ringing, their other screen is up, and there's lights flashing. I mean, it's 24/7. Find a way to slow them down, and use an influencer, use a brand advocate, use someone that has a little bit of pull in the industry, someone that's in front of people that are highly qualified, someone that's in front of people that have a lot of money and are looking for the right thing. How many times I get asked, Joel, what's hot? What should I be looking at? Right. I usually don't have an answer.
Again, for the emerging brands, my advice is take a different path. And I would start with the copy. And boy, I don't know if you do it, but yeah, I mean, I again, just looking at your website, reading your articles, if you are a brand out there, I would challenge, to answer the and question. And I would talk to you about that. I think you're actually underselling this, and I think the value you could have for an emerging brand is tremendous, and that's why I think this webinar is tremendous.
Thank you.
For franchisors, what should their focus be on qualifying franchisees? And I know the critical importance of it. What's your take on that?
I've worked with some franchisors, some young franchisors, who were a little weak about the money part at first because they're so new. They felt that they would maybe turn someone off if they focused on the financial aspect of the process early on. As in, do you have enough money to buy our franchise? Do it first. I mean, like first or second. You know, I always tell my clients to have a net worth statement ready to go. Don't ask your leads approximately how much money they have to invest. Ask them for a net worth statement or lead them to the net worth statement, okay? It's so important. Find out. Why would you want to be surprised? I remember working with a franchisor, and this person, you know, said, "Oh man, I have this really hot prospect, and but they won't do this and they won't do that." I said, "Well, what kind of money do they have?" "Oh, we discussed it. You know, they say they have enough." They say they have enough. All right. Have you seen it on paper yet? Well, kind of. Don't waste your time if they don't have the money. You know, when you're new, it's kind of hard to ask that question. You know, what is your net worth, by the way? You've got to ask it. You know what? People that have a pretty good net worth usually won't take offense to it, you know, because they know already that they're going to get asked.
Right.
People that don't have that net worth, you know, I'm offended. You know, I have enough money or I wouldn't be talking to you. Find a smooth way to do it at the beginning. It's really an important part of the qualifying process.
The psychology is interesting too, because if you approach the process through a genuine way with that integrity, and you believe that for the right prospect you're the best opportunity, then you really should have no problem bringing up the dollars, because
bring up the dollars.
It's a benefit for them. Yeah. Other advice, Joel, you're saying don't complicate the process.
Don't complicate it.
Yeah, just hit this for us, because it was interesting. And then at the last one I found really interesting that you, in terms of software, but do you want to just hit these points in terms of advice?
Sure. Get the financials early, and instead of selling them on why they should be looking at your franchise opportunity, get them talking about themselves. Why do why now? It's like the best question I ask every client. You know, why now? What has changed in your life that's saying that you should be doing this now instead of 14 months ago? What has changed? Get them talking. You know. The first phone call should be, let's see if we like each other phone call anyway. Don't complicate the process. Don't make it a 19-week process, all right? You should be able to, from when you get the lead to actually saying yes and awarding the franchise, like 5-6 weeks. I mean, really, keep it simple. 4 weeks if it's someone that is like me, who's like, okay, let's do it, 6 to 7 weeks if it's a more of an engineering type who needs to have the graphs and the figures and everything. But 4 to 6 weeks, I say 5 weeks is probably good average. You should get someone from beginning to end. So don't complicate it. Get the information fast. If someone wants the FDD, get them the FDD. You should offer it anyway. You don't have to offer it in the first phone call, but the second phone call, you should be at least talking about it. All right. Don't do one of these. Well, we will, we'll disclose the FDD when you visit us at Discovery Day. That is a no-no, because to me, and it's what I tell my clients, that means there's something in the FDD that they want to tell you in person. Okay. So they can kind of get you in the ether. Say, it's fine. 19 lawsuits, no big deal. Here's what happened. All right. Get them the FDD. Finally, while some of the software programs are really good, there are software programs that are thousands of dollars that promise to help you determine if the person that is the lead is a really good match for your system. The software is going to do it. People are going to write in answers. It's going to score it. Personally, I think it's a waste of money. If you have a good sales department, if you have a good department that handles the leads, you have a good operations person, and you are, as the CEO, you think you're a pretty good judge of character and quality, you're going to figure out if someone's going to be a good match. As a young franchisor, I would not spend $5,000 or $6,000 on some software that promises to help you find the perfect candidate. I don't think it's that complicated, really. I think it starts at the beginning. Get them financially qualified, see what they want out of life, find out if your opportunity is a match for their wants and needs and what role they want to have in the business, and go from there. It's not that complicated.
Joel, and by the way, anyone who's on, if you'd like to use the chat feature to ask a question. Joel, one question that we did have is for the franchise landing page, the sales site, What would be some of the things you'd recommend that would be on that webpage?
Just maybe one or two paragraphs, a little background of the story and how the brand came about, how the concept came about. A couple bullet points, enough of a tease to get someone to fill out a form. There should not be a real long sales page. Maybe 500 words, 400 words, and then request more information on the bottom.
Joel, what would be an example of a tease, like a copy for like a
find out if there's a territory available in your location.
Okay.
Right there. You know, fill out the form now.
Joel, I really appreciate this. I'm again big fan, and I think this just fits in really well with I think a missing gap for a lot of emerging brands, which I think there's just a ton of value here. Which I would say the amazing advice, which is to start with offering a solution to the real pain of a prospect. And Joel, I appreciate it very much. Thank you very much, and I appreciate Bear and Franchise Dog there being so patient. Thank you so much, Joel.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for all the great stuff you do as an ethical franchise attorney. It really, really helps. Two more things. I mean, one more thing.
Yeah.
22 seconds, okay?
No, Joel.
It's so important. Franchisors, emerging franchisors who may have one franchise sold and maybe not even up and running yet, or who have none. I know you want to make the first sale. I know you want to see franchise fee check coming across your desk. If you have something that is unusual, extraordinary, high quality, a combination of all three, you're a quality person, you really feel that you can help others grow your brand, be patient. Just one foot in front of the other. And if you choose quality franchisees at the beginning, you're going to be fine. Just trust your instincts. If you are talking to someone that you're like, oh, finally, we're going to get one sold, and then you meet that person face to face and something is just not right, don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to pay, and you'll probably pay Charles.
Yeah. No, I agree. No, Joel, I mean,
No.
It's critical. I mean, and you've hit the right point because they do worry about that. I've seen it. I mean, it will be good. And I think if someone follows the advice that you're giving here, I'm a little more confident now than I was a little while ago, right? Because emerging brands, they need a battle plan.
Yeah.
And it needs to be different from what everyone else is doing. And Joel, I think you can help a lot of people. You do. So I appreciate that. And if you are an emerging brand, and let us know, we'll connect you with Joel. Go to thefranchiseking.com. And Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles.